Hello friends and welcome home. I'm Jamie James. If we have not met, we are a homeschooling, homesteading family here in the Home Channel, and we have 4 kids. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing my very dear friend, Miss Salina Scott. You can find her at Scott Through the Heart on YouTube. And she is a fellow homeschooler. We've probably been doing this about 4 years-ish together, I think.
That's right. I think 4 years,
4.
maybe 5.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
It feels like, I don't know.
It's a blur.
It is a blur. I have a lot of children. It's a blur.
It's a blur.
I get it.
It's okay.
It's
So
fine.
anyway, so she's going to tell us some of the things that she has experienced, some of the curriculum she uses, her strategies in an effort to help you make some decisions and maybe get some ideas. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, or if you're busy, put in those ear pods and we will get going.
Yay.
All right, let's get started. So first question for you, how many children and what are the ages of your children?
4 girls. Yeah, you heard me say that. Girls. 4 of them. My oldest being 25, and I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Quite the spread.
Yes, very much so.
It's fun though.
Yes, it's much easier. Do it that way. You'll never have to work hard ever again. Just kidding. It's never
Lies.
gonna
You'll work hard
4
longer.
girls, I'll say it again. Okay. All right.
And how long have you been homeschooling?
Oh, let's see. I was trying to think about that because the reality is that my oldest, like I said, is 25, and I homeschooled her for a small period. For about 3 years, I was trying to do the math for it because it was a whole thing. So I pulled her out of school at like 5th grade, and then I decided to homeschool. But you guys, the resources back then,
Right.
there was nothing, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I could not continue to put her in the system because it was that bad. The education was that low. She was like a top student, and she couldn't even do her multiplication tables. And I'm like, how are you a top student? But that's just the nature of the beast, right? So, yeah.
Right. So give an approximate. What do you think?
So I had 3 years with her, I think 6 years total right now, because I ended up having my kids go to a charter school up until like 5th grade. So I think I started Destiny at 6th grade. I think she did 1 year of foundations and essentials before she had to hit up and challenge.
That's a classical conversations
Yes.
lingo.
Sorry, my bad. So I think 8 years, 9? 9 years maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working towards our 9th or 10th. I don't know.
Got it.
Somewhere in there.
So maybe we've been doing like 6
Yeah,
years together.
about 6 years.
And so you said classical conversations. What? Tell us about your curriculum and where families may find it.
Where they find it? You mean through like a director or online?
No. So yes. So you would find classical conversations
Online, it's everywhere. You can go to YouTube. It's
Yeah,
everywhere.
totally.
You can do Brave, DuckDuckGo. Okay, anyway, you'll find it. They're everywhere, literally everywhere, and they're popping up. I think
Yeah.
even in some, which is amazing. I don't think there are as many on the Northwest in the Washington area,
That's true.
and Oregon area as there are in like the Midwest, which is very popular there. So there's a lot more coming and happening now. But
Agreed.
I was gonna say on my, like I've been doing classical only for like 6 years, right? Because my oldest, I didn't have classical. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about it. And so she was actually doing Life Pack. I just went and purchased like some Life Pack Alpha and a Becca like program. I can't even remember the full name of it. I think it was just Life Pack, and it had like all the curriculums. You can just choose whatever you wanted to choose. And that's what I did for her because I really had no idea.
Right. So that would be like a bundle of all curriculums coming
Yeah, so
together.
you just choose whatever you want to do. You want to do science, if you want to do, you just buy that set, and
Yeah.
it had workbooks, and I was like, okay, let's just do that. 'Cause I had no idea. I was really green.
Right. Well,
Really
and
great.
like you said, we have so many resources that we didn't have before.
Right.
Like it's amazing the choices. So you can purchase a whole curriculum now and have it shipped to you, and it tells you everything to do and what books to read, or you can pick and choose.
Yeah, it was not like that. I say, if you're doing it now, this is the time.
It is
to
the
homeschool.
time.
You have everything. So many resources everywhere.
Yeah.
There's somebody that you're walking down the street that homeschools.
Absolutely.
So like,
Absolutely.
it's a whole new world.
So tell me, why is it that you stuck with classical conversations, or what stood out to you in that?
I honestly, it was hard for me. I'm going to be real about, like, I was not sure, even after my first year of doing challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my first year of challenge, I mean, we did 1 year of essentials and foundations, but It's a lot, because I mean, the model that you come through from school is so drastically different than the model for challenge. And so I really struggled with, can we keep this up, like this Latin thing? I'm like, Latin, what is this monster? Right. And I think after a while, when you sit in it for a while and you really start to see it later, I think if I hadn't had people that I could see that their kids were older and see what it created, I don't think I would have stuck with it, honestly. Right. Because it just wasn't, like, I love that it's the children learn how to like do things on their own and like, you know, work through problems and be dialectic and have discussions, and they're real and they're deep, and they're, you know, how we want to raise our children, like spiritually, right? We want to have deep conversations and have a real understanding and knowing what they're talking about. Yeah. It's very hard to unlearn everything we've been taught. Change our mindset and how we look at life and how we look at schooling and how we, you know, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And I really struggled with it, thinking to ask my daughter, because she was like, I do not want to do this anymore. Totally. Like, and then I was like, well, let's push through. And then I had the second one come through, and she loved it. Right. So it just, she also had 2 years of Essentials and Foundations. So it made a difference. And then now I have a little one who's only done that. Right. So, you have to kind of wait to see, like, it's not an instant gratification at first. It's kind of very hard. And I'm not gonna like even sugarcoat it. It's hard. Yeah, it is a lot of work. It's a challenge for a reason. So just to break that down, when she says Foundations, Essentials, Foundations is age 4 years old to 9 years old, or 12 years old, sorry. Essentials joins at 9 to 12, and that's a writing and English grammar heavy part, which kind of helps support that Latin. And then Challenge starts in what we would call 7th grade year and goes up for your information. Yeah. Okay, so how do you describe your homeschooling style? I think it's funny because I'm like, anybody that knows me, I'm a total free spirit. So I'm like, I do what I want to do. So it's very, actually, I think I'm very free spirited. I do expect them to get their work done. And like at the age that they are, I don't have to really deal with that. Like that's something that they need to be managing. They're in Challenge, like that's their job. Yeah. Now, as far as for Geneva, since she is younger, my focus is actually very minimal because she's 6, right? So my focus is just math and reading. We don't even do it every day. I mean, we really don't. And I just focus on, okay, like you need to be doing your reading, you need to be doing a little bit of your math, and they learn through other things. So it's much easier to make everything into a learning type of situation, stick in the sand kind of mindset. That really is a thing. Right. And so I think I've learned to use other things to teach her besides just books. Right. And writing and the basics, but you know, like you have to do these things, right? And so I think I'm still very free spirited. I do want things completed because I don't like to feel like I'm falling behind everybody else. Yeah, totally. Like, my kid still can't read, and she's like 8. No, I'm just kidding. You know, you don't want to do that. Totally. And so I'm like, I still want her to be like on somewhat a pace of a majority of kids. Not that everybody fits into a box, right? But yeah. Well, you're just classical. That's what just classical has my heart, is that it's conversation. So you are starting to look at something in nature, and you start the conversation, and you start bringing in grammar or the terms of the different parts or whatever, and ask questions. Why do you think, or whatever. I love that. Yeah, it's more of them creating and thinking and using their minds, and so me just telling, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to believe. And regurgitate it to me. And regurgitate. Yeah, that's a big one. So. Absolutely. Okay, what is your typical schedule for like a day, a week, a season? How would you break that down? See, that's a tough one for me because, you know, we have a lot of sports in my family. I've got 2 middle kids that do a lot of sports. Right. And so we kind of fit everything around that. And they have to fit everything around their schedule. So when they know that they have a tournament coming up for the weekend, they're going to be gone for 3 days. They have to be on top of that because guess what? They have challenge and they have to go to class and have to have things done. So they have to be really diligent about getting their work done and planning it. Sometimes they have a day where it's all day they're doing their schoolwork. Because they did not plan accordingly. So they pay for it. Not me. Or they just have so much to get through. Right. And the beauty of classical conversations, I would say, is that you are the teacher. Right. So you tailor, you could, structure things down if it was just too intense of a week. But I think sports is a reality for many people watching this. How do you manage your schedule? It is a tough thing to manage. I think it's easier during the summer, even though we have a really grueling schedule during the summer, but during the school week, I think that they are so busy. I mean, the the demand it's heavy. So I think they have like 3. I mean, they're in the background if you didn't know, friends. I'm
nodding.
sure, like,
nodding.
But they literally have to, like, they do it their own way. Like Destiny's completely different than Savannah and how they handle things and do their. And I do tailor. Like, if I don't want them to spend an hour on Latin. They don't. I tailor it back. I want you to have the concept. I'm not expecting you to be fluent, but I want you to have the concept and be able to use it and know, the basics at least of it. And then I find that now that Destiny's getting older, she's liking Latin more. Go figure.
Right. It's making more sense. It's a puzzle that we figured out.
But again, it's the process.
Totally. Totally. And for our friends who don't know, your season there is no end of the season. Like, their sports are year round. So when she's saying it's the whole time, it doesn't matter.
We really don't get many breaks. And that's just because that's what they've decided. Not me. They've decided this life of crazy. But I think of it like a gymnast.
Right.
All of them homeschool. They do gymnastics 6 days a week, maybe, in 6 to 12 hours, depending on what level they're at, right? They spend their life there. So if you're really dedicated in that way, you have to pay for it in another way. That means you're doing your work on your off time. You don't get all the extra time to spend with friends that you'd want that other kids would possibly get. So you have to, like, balance all of that.
Totally.
So, and that's something that they've chosen. They can step out anytime they want. So.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you, like us, they're studying no cards in the car or something. Like, it's not ending.
Savannah, I would say, yeah, she does that kind of. And I think even Destiny, when she's like doing her papers before class, she's like reading over all her stuff because they have speeches or like debate stuff or, so they're always all the time. I say, yeah, it is. I think it'll be a little bit different as Geneva gets up too, because I'll be more used to that. I didn't really have to do a lot of that. They're older, so
right.
We're still working that out. And
Geneva's
6.
Totally. So. What would your kids say their experiences are with homeschooling as they're in the background?
I would say...
I wish I had a camera that
I know, right? I could see their faces.
Yeah.
I would say Destiny is the one that still wants to go to school and do the traditional thing because she's super, uber social. And so even though she gets socialization through her sports and through church and through even CC, she wants more. She's greedy. And so
that's funny.
For her, I would say she still wants to go to school, but she still wants to do CC. Like, she wants both.
Yeah,
it's a really weird thing. Now Savannah, she's completely content. She loves CC, and so she's like, the idea of doing CC and being homeschooled is like her favorite. It fits her personality. Like, she gets to think and ponder things and learn. So it's just a different. Totally. And Geneva, she's super social too. I think if she had the option to go to school, she'd choose school. Right. But she thinks CC is school, so she's like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, she doesn't know any different, and so for her, she's like, yes, every day if we could do this every day, because she's extremely social also. So. Oh, and I will say, on my oldest child, I don't know if there's questions about that later.
No, go ahead.
Okay, my oldest child is a little bit different. Like, her thoughts on homeschooling is a little different because she was in the school system, homeschooled, and then in the school system again. She feels completely ripped off based off her sisters.
That's interesting.
She feels like the education for her sisters is so much greater than hers, and that they built such a strength and foundation, like, really for them, that she feels like, she's like, I've been totally ripped off and it's not fair. That's her
education
because she was also more she's more introverted, so she would have liked that aspect of it, and so that's why I would say how she sees it. She kind of feels like she missed out.
Totally. Okay, next question is, what is the biggest challenge that you have faced in homeschooling, and how have you overcome it, or how are you overcoming it if it's still a challenge?
Biggest challenge, my laziness.
Totally.
That would be the biggest challenge for me. No, seriously, like, if I think about, like, not being as on top of things as I should because I'm such a free spirit, I just want to do what I want to do and make it work here, and I'm okay with free flowing. I think that there's things lost in that on my part. And so I can let Geneva go a little bit longer without doing an extra lesson because, things like, because I'm like, oh, we're doing this, or we haven't gotten to it yet. Right. And you can really kind of put it to the side. So you have to be really, like, I have to really watch myself. That's where I struggle the most. So that for me is a continual thing. Totally. I'm always having to be like, okay, you need to get to it and make sure that she does at least 3 lessons this week. Yeah. That she's reading at least, we're doing a lesson of learning. And so that would, I think for me would be, oh, there's a spider, you guys. It's going up. I'm distracted, see? So I think that's just, honestly, that's for me. It's more of a me thing. It's not really the kids as much as it's me.
So that would go back to that structure question. I think, like, when you're saying my structure is, even though I'm free spirited, I am forcing myself to do three days a week of lessons or whatever. So that's my structure. Even if it moves and is flowing, that works. You get to do what you want to do.
Right.
What is the most rewarding thing you found about homeschooling?
Most rewarding, I think, is the fact that I get to impart into them the most. Nobody else gets to put their junk in my kid. And so I think that for me is huge. That's the most beneficial thing for me, is I get to impart my values, and I don't let somebody else who doesn't have my values or any values impart into my children. That's
awesome.
I'm not having that.
It's very rewarding.
It is very,
Absolutely. And if you could start all over, what would you do differently? Like mistakes you've made or anything?
Well, with Maisha, obviously, can't go back on that. Sorry, my. I can't go back on that. So, what I would do differently, I don't honestly think, as of right now, I can't think of anything right now.
Well, I think that's a good one right there, is if you could have done it differently, you would have homeschooled longer with her. Like,
well, if I had the option,
right?
I don't even think they had it then in this area, and I didn't know anything about it. So of course, I could have Maisha and start her all the way at. She would have extremely thrived.
Absolutely.
Like her.
So if you're
she's already doing really well, anyways. But like I imagine like where it would put her.
So if you're considering like, do I homeschool? Do I not? She's saying
homeschool.
Homeschool.
You know, we get pulled to this whole thing. Well, it's easier or it makes more sense because they're around other kids. No, you're letting other kids and all their families define your child when you're in situations where they're all coming from different aspects of life, and you don't have enough parent ears around to see or hear what's going on.
Right.
So it's actually not a good model. It's a horrible model, and we're seeing that already. So, I think for me, I would definitely. I'm always going to be an advocate for homeschool. Yeah. Always.
That's good.
Always.
How do you balance the differences, the different roles you play, or like all of the plate spinning? How do you find balance in your home?
I don't feel imbalanced. I think it's hard for me. I'm like, I feel the same. I just go with the flow, and if things have to change, it changes.
Yeah.
So it's not, I don't find it challenging to deal with those kind of things. I deal well with change really well. So, I don't struggle in that area. I will say that's not a struggle for me. Only because I'm like, oh, if that doesn't work, well, we'll do something else.
Totally.
It's not an end all be all and doesn't break me. So and that's just who my personality, my type is.
Right.
So I'm okay with like whatever. I'll go with whatever. We'll do this. We'll do this. If it doesn't work out, we'll do this. I'll find a way to fit it in.
Yeah, so that's good. And then maybe that's a good piece of advice, is hold your schedule loosely, because obviously multiple different personalities here. A free spirit saying type A, hold it loosely and work with what you have in each season. I like what that Sarah Mackenzie says in her book, that you take 6 weeks at a time, and then you analyze. Like, just take a minute and analyze, is this working, is this not working? And if you're a little bit more disheveled in your schedule for the season because of sports, maybe it's less than 6 weeks.
Exactly.
You know, like every week.
Oh, let's look at this again.
Yeah, totally. Right.
That's not working.
Yes. Okay. One more question for you. What piece of advice would you give a new or inquiring homeschool person?
Piece of advice. Stand. And I say that because it's really easy to be pushed over by all the other voices. Stand on what the Lord has told you, even if it's hard, even if everybody else is shouting you down and saying, no, this is not the way, you shouldn't be doing that, you're this, you're that. No, stand, because your children are worth it.
That's good.
The sacrifice that a queen makes is for her kingdom, and your children and your husband are your kingdom, right? You sacrifice for them. It's worth it. The reward is later, and it's okay. It's okay to have the reward later. I don't have to have it right now, even though I want it.
Very good.
Stand.
Thank you, friends. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this. We will have more interviews to come, and we appreciate you joining us. Have a great day. Bye.